Our story begins deep in the night, where one little girl is running through the woods, and by all appearances she is looking for something, for she thought she should be able to find something before dawn. On each full moon, a spirit spring appears in the forest near the palace, and rumors say that the water from this spring contains mystical power that can even bring the dead back to life. The girl recalls how a man told her that she should remember that he who enters the forest on the full moon may never come back alive. But we realize that the girl was not stopped by this. At one moment, the little girl was very much frightened because she heard some sounds, but it turned out that it was the knights, and seeing them, the girl hid behind a tree, and apparently the girl did not want to be seen. Very determined, our little heroine said that she needed water, and that she thought it would cure her mother's illness. And now it becomes clear to us why this little girl is running through the woods at night. The girl looked at her map and realized that she was almost there. And as soon as she took her eyes off the map, the girl noticed the light and started running towards it, because she was sure that she had already reached it. The girl walked through the fog and was very happy because she found the water. It turns out that this water is actually a spring of spirits, and looking into the water, the girl noticed that the water is crystal clear. After a short time, the girl gathered herself, for she really didn't have much time, and then the girl began to draw the very water that would heal her mother. After a few seconds, someone asked the girl what she was doing here, to which the girl was very frightened at first. But then she saw that the boy was visibly bruised. Our heroine was not confused, and greeted the boy, said that her name is Sasha Corsico. But the boy told the girl that he does not recall such a surname, and at the same time looked at the girl strangely. A little girl noticed on the clothes of a guy the royal coat of arms Vasilo, and asked him, "Is he really Prince Paris?" It turns out Prince Paris Vladimiro is the heir to the royal family, which all people Vasilo waited for. The boy's mother, the queen, died immediately after the birth of the child, and a series of tragedies, both small and great, befell the ruling family. And it was because of this that the prince was called the Prince of Failure. The little prince asked the girl if she even understood where she had stepped with her feet, and told her that serious punishment awaited those who broke the laws of the kingdom, and at the same time addressing the girl, said that such a little thing as she did not understand the gravity of her sins. The little heroine said in her head that he was a child himself, and she didn't seem to like what he said. But then the girl told the guy that her mom had a serious illness, and she heard that this water could even bring the dead back to life. At the same moment, the guy was surprised at the girl's naivety and asked her how she could believe in such baseless nonsense. But the girl said she would rather die trying than sit and do nothing to heal her mother. Apparently, the prince was surprised by the little girl's words, because he couldn't understand how she could die for the sake of another person. But the girl started to cry and say that she can't just watch no one help her mom. Sasha says that if this water can revive the dead, then her mommy will be saved. Because according to her, we understand that her daddy couldn't help her, and she is very upset about it. Paris was sitting and thinking, while the girl noticed that there was something in the water. And suddenly an incredibly large dragon appeared out of nowhere, and the girl with a frightened look told the prince that there was a monster present. Sasha did not have time to say anything else because this monster grabbed her and apparently wanted to drag the girl with him, and at that moment he hurt little Sasha, but the girl thought that she could not move. The guy just stood and watched, and told the girl that it looked like she was really going to die, and asked her if she was happy now. But the girl started begging him for help, to which the guy asked her what he would get in return. Sasha said she'd give him anything to save her, and after hearing that, the guy pulled out a knife and told the girl he'd help her, and with a wave of his hand he killed the monster. The girl couldn't understand how the monster was falling apart, but she was still very happy and grateful to the guy for saving her and keeping her alive and unharmed. Our events move to the Corsico estate, where Sasha is lying unconscious in bed, and a man asks a woman how Sasha feels, to which the woman replies that she is still unconscious. The woman said she couldn't accept an invitation from the royal family, to which the man said the little girl had already been chosen as a candidate for princess consort, and he couldn't disobey His Majesty's orders. Apparently this man is Sasha's father, and he put his hand on the girl's face, and in his head said that Sashenka is a stupid girl, for he could not understand why she chased after the crazy rumors about the magic water. He remembered the situation when he stood with the girl in his arms, and the prince told the Count of Corsica that he should realize that breaking such laws did not immediately lead to the gallows. The guy says he's ready to forget about his daughter's invasion, to which the Count thanked the prince for his mercy and for saving his daughter. But you could see his sadness for what happened to his daughter on the Count's face. After the man came out of his thoughts, he thought that some people called Prince Paris a child of the devil. But he did not think he was, for the fellow had shown mercy to them. The woman who was standing next to the girl was a servant of the house, and she apologized to the gentleman and told him that she knew she shouldn't say that, but at that moment the man interrupted her and asked her what she was talking about. The servant suggested that the Count should ask a sorcerer for help, but the Count said that he thought that sorcerers' magic was just superstition, to which the woman said that it might be so. Well, that's not a bad idea, because doctors can't help anything anymore. The woman says to her master that they cannot leave everything just like that and lose the lady as well as the mistress. But the man did not answer the woman on these words, because apparently it is too painful for him to talk about it. The Count looked at his daughter and began to think about these words because he wanted to help his daughter, but he was not sure that the sorcerer will save her. But still he wants his daughter to live. Sasha has nightmares in her dreams. She remembers the night when the monster grabbed her, and the situation when the guy called the girl Sasha Costco and told her that she owed him, because she told him that she was ready for any conditions. In that situation, the guy took the girl in his arms and told her that when the time came, he would ask her to take his side. The action of the story moves some time forward, where our main character has already grown up and become almost another person. After all, everything has changed in her and even her appearance. Our main character is wearing a headdress that protects her from the direct rays of the sun. It is not clear why it is needed, but I think soon we will know everything in more detail. Apparently, the girl has a class on sword handling, and the girl is quite good with it as she manages to win against her instructor. But it seems the girl is already tired. The guy suggests the lady to take a little break, as he notices that she feels quite bad already, and apparently she doesn't have the strength anymore, but still she doesn't want to give up. The servant of the girl named Olga comes to them, and the guy informs Mrs. Sasha that Olga is already flying in their direction, and she does not look very cheerful. Apparently her assistant is not very happy that the girl is on the street. Olga reaches Sasha and tells her mistress that it's dangerous for her to be outside in the middle of the day. But the girl doesn't care about these words, and she tells her assistant that she can't skip ball practice. She says she should be able to stand up for herself in any situation. Olga wipes the forehead of our heroine and tells her that she needs to realize that excessive activity at this time of day will weaken her. After all, according to her, girls are very dangerous to be outdoors in the sun. Olga informs Mrs. Sasha that the water in her bathtub is getting cold and asks her mistress to go after her. And at the same time, our heroine says goodbye to her teacher and thanks him. And we also learn that the teacher's name is Alec. Already in that bathtub, the girl takes off all her clothes and takes a shower, after which she stands in front of the mirror and thinks that she is not used to her way of life and she looks quite sad. The girl says that 10 years ago she sneaked into the royal palace and was attacked by a monster, and her father asked the help of a sorcerer to save his daughter. Sasha says that the magical spell of this sorcerer led the girl to great changes, and apparently not only appearance, because our heroine says that after that he made her a vampire, and now it is very dangerous for her to be in the sunlight, because she can die at any moment. Our heroine asks for Olga's attention, and asks her if she is afraid of the girl, to which Olga takes the mistress by the head, and asks her if she speaks seriously about it. Olga asks her mistress if she really thinks she would serve her, if she was afraid she would pounce on her and bite her neck. And our heroine, one not long, just stood there and silently obeyed her assistant. After a short silence, our heroine tells her assistant that she doesn't know what to say. After all, she is a vampire, and because of that, anything can happen. And she thinks that she won't even be able to control herself. The maid tells Sasha that she knows the girl would never go for it, but she also says that if her blood could make the girl human again, she would no doubt give it to bring joy back to the girl's face. When Sasha heard these words, she thanked Olga for such devotion, but suddenly, Olga asks her mistress if she is hungry and gives her a glass of blood to drink. Olga gives the glass to her mistress, and the girl immediately takes the glass from Olga's hands and starts drinking it, after which her eyes widened, and she immediately realized that it was the blood of a golden canary. Some time ago, a sorcerer tells the girl's father that Sasha's craving for human blood can be replaced by the blood of a golden canary, and she can live like that. The father of the girl asks the sorcerer if it turns out that thanks to this, the girl will be able to live as a normal person, to which the sorcerer answers that it is indeed so, but she will not be able to give birth to a child, and warns him to keep this in mind. Also, this man says that our heroine needs to beware of people with poisonous blood, but it seems that the girl's father did not understand what he was talking about, to which the guy continues to say that quite rarely, but such people appear, and poisonous blood is deadly for vampires and monsters, and therefore, he needs to make sure that the girl would never give up the blood of the canary. It turns out it was a dream of the prince, and he woke up in a cold sweat after this nightmare, and says that he had the same nightmare again. He says that even after 10 years, that girl comes in his dreams and torments him. The guy says he's going to go crazy that way, but at the same moment a guard bursts into the prince's room and asks His Highness if he's already awake. The guard asks the prince why he should not sleep longer, for he thinks the prince must be tired of preparing for the wedding. But when he hears these words, the prince is a little confused and does not understand what kind of wedding he is talking about. The prince asks his subject if this is the third wedding, but the prince replies that it is indeed, but this time it is a young lady of the house of Hasman. But at that moment, the principal thought what difference could it make, for according to him, she would not last long anyway. A lot of clothes are brought into the room, and he is told that everything is ready. And then the prince asks Sergei, how many candidates for princesses were there 10 years ago? To which the latter asked the prince in response why he so suddenly asked about it. After this question, the prince told his subject to forget it, for they had other things to do, to which his subject was left speechless and did not know what to say. Sergei looked at his lord and told him that today he looked dashing, and told him that the ceremony would start soon, and so he should go. But at the same moment, Sergei thought that he hoped that this time the lady would survive. Our prince enters the banquet hall, and looking at his family, he tells us that right after his mother died, his father took a new wife, and though she was a widow with a child, she somehow managed to seduce him. The prince says that his stepmother also got Prince Chelsea pregnant right after becoming queen, and she wanted her son to take the throne very badly, so she humiliated him in the public eye with a wedding. Someone thanks everyone for waiting and introduces Prince Vladimiro, but everyone around starts saying that they hope this time the bride will survive, while someone else asks if this is the third attempt. Everyone began to discuss behind the prince's back, saying that previous brides had started coughing up blood and dropped dead immediately after kissing. And they asked each other if the rumors were true, and if the prince was really possessed by a demon. Someone represents Lady Laura Hasman, but people started discussing again, and said that Baron Hasman looks like he's going to cry, and someone else says that he probably knows about all the rumors and is afraid for his daughter. The marriage ceremony has already begun, and the prince, along with his future wife, stand before the priest, who tells them that it is time to seal their holy matrimony, and tells the prince that he may kiss the bride. A guy removes the veil from a girl's face and leans over her to kiss her. And at that moment, after kissing the girl, the guy noticed that she was fine and was surprised by it. Everyone around started to say that everything was fine, and that the prince was not a demon, and everyone around rejoiced. But suddenly, at the moment when the priest began to say that he was declaring Prince Paris and Lady Lara husband and wife, the girl began to cough up blood and immediately fell to her death. After the wedding scene, the prince and his father are left alone, and at that moment, His Majesty hits his son, and he falls to the floor. And also His Majesty tells his son that everything has been going wrong since his birth, because this is the third death on the altar. At this point, the boy asked his father if he still considered him a little boy, but from these words and increase even more angry, and did not know how to do with his son. His Majesty asked his son how dare he speak like that, and tried to hit him again. But at the same moment, the prince grabbed his father's hand and did not let his father hit him, and told His Majesty that he asked him to stop this nonsense with weddings, but no one listened to him. His Majesty was very angry and told his son that he was a cheeky lad. But at the same moment, the king's wife came running and asked her husband to leave the boy alone. This woman says the prince is probably heartbroken right now, and violence won't solve anything. And all the while she held her husband in her arms and added that they need to surround the prince with love, even if others curse and point fingers. The king looked at his consort and told her that she was too kind, and yet they smiled sweetly at each other and held each other in their arms. But our prince, looking at all that was going on, said with his head that it was very disgusting. Our hero says that his stepmother hides her true nature very well, for according to him, every time his father beat him, this woman ordered the fire to be put out and begged him with cold, or gave him spoiled food to cause poisoning. He says she tortured him more subtly than his father. The king tells the queen that the prince will never marry, because he doesn't understand what kind of a madman would want to give his daughter to such a man. But then the queen says that she has a family on her mind. This woman says that Count Corsico, a nobleman from the wilderness, just has a daughter of the right age for him. But hearing these words, the guy immediately began to panic, because he realized who he was talking about. He remembered the little girl who had introduced herself to him as Sasha Corsica, and then he was very surprised that she was still alive. But he smiled and thought that it looked like the girl had somehow managed to survive. Another day came, and a messenger from the kingdom arrived at the door, asking the Count of Corsica to allow him to deliver the official decree of the palace that his daughter, Lady Corsica, had been chosen to be the bride of His Highness and future princess. The Count, with great regret, tells Hans that it is hard for him to say this, but the state of his daughter's health will not allow him to take on such a burden, and immediately everyone around started talking about how they had heard that the lady was getting skin problems in direct sunlight. Our heroine sits in the house, and outside the window watches his father and the very end talking to each other. And she says that her father is afraid that people might find out that she is a vampire, and so he does not agree to the marriage. Sasha says that the truth is known to a limited number of people. But being in her thoughts, the girl did not even notice how her assistant entered the room and asks her mistress if she can hear her, and then the girl reacted. 3 princess candidates have already died, and she wonders if the prince could be the devil's child, and we can tell by her look that she's quite worried, for she fears for her mistress. Then our heroine remembered the very situation that happened 10 years ago, when she first met that boy, and when that tragedy with the monster happened, and then the girl thought that really, that boy did not look ordinary. Suddenly a man came to the girl's door and handed her a letter, and at once Olga gladly handed the letter to Lady Sasha, and told her that a letter had come to her. Sasha opened that very letter and carefully began to read it, and by the look of mistress, Olga immediately realized that something was wrong and asked mistress if there was bad news. Our heroine told her assistant that it was a letter from the Prince of Paris, and it said that he recommended the lady to accept his proposal, and at the end asked her if she had not forgotten her promise. But at the same moment, the girl thought that the prince was crazy. In the palace to the queen comes her daughter, and remembers her mother that she said earlier that the principal will go to Erica, or rather to her, because she says that she needs only him, because she wants to marry him. At that moment, her mom told her daughter that it was time for her to grow up, because everything has a limit. But the little princess got mad, and told her mom that she promised that the prince would belong only to her. Prince Paris's stepmother says that if she can get him out of the picture, it will only be a matter of time before Chelsea gets the throne, or she thought she'd have to kill him to avoid further problems. The lady orders her daughter to come to her, and whispers in her ear that this will be the prince's last wedding, for Lady Corsico will die. But Erica immediately asked her mother, how could she know this? For she thinks it may not happen. This crazy queen asks her daughter if she's ever seen her daughter not get what she wants, to which her daughter replies that it's never happened. But the mistress goes on to say that her daughter should just trust her, and it will be business as usual. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door of the mistress, and she asks Courtney if she is in the room, to which she opens the door and asks her husband what she has done to deserve this joy. For she says she thought the king was very busy. He immediately asked his wife how the preparation for the wedding was going, to which she replied that everything was fine, and there was nothing to worry about, because she wanted to find Paris a couple so that he could become a respected head of state. The king tells his wife that it won't happen because the Chelvi has a better chance of it, but the queen silences her husband with one finger and, calling him dear, asks him not to say such things. This woman began to manipulate the king, pretending to be an innocent girl, and began to complain to him that people would start pointing fingers at his evil stepmother, to which the king simply hugged his wife and told her not to worry about it, because if another lady dies, he will send him to a remote land and maybe even deprive the right to the throne. The wicked stepmother started to smile, but then the king asked her if she didn't know why the count insisted on a night wedding, to which she replied that she didn't know, but she didn't see any problem with it, because she thought she would look more magical with all that light. The king desperately said that they are in no position to choose anything, because this is their last chance for people not to point fingers at them, and for them to continue to be respected. The marriage ceremony had already begun, and the prince clenched his hand into a fist and thought that one day they should meet, because according to him, this girl haunted him for all 10 years, because he had nightmares with her every night. The prince said that life would not get any worse, and remembered the times when his father beat him very badly, and his stepmother just laughed and tormented him even more, and he thought he had had enough of it all. His Majesty the prince said that tonight it would all end. Olga, Sasha's assistant, was already waiting for the girl to leave the room, and at the moment when the mistress came out, she asked her assistant how she looked, to which Olga's reaction was crazy. Olga started jumping around Mistress, and was very much surprised and told Mistress that she looked amazing, just like a real mermaid, and asked the girl's father if he too thought Mistress looked so breathtaking. The girl's father was silent for a few seconds and started to think about something, but then he asked his daughter to listen to him for a while, and asked his daughter why she had agreed to the marriage, because she could have refused the wedding. The girl just looked at her father and did not know what to say, and immediately remembered the letter where the prince recommended to accept his proposal, because she had made him a promise. The girl thought that she could not say that the prince blackmailed her, but suddenly Olga intervenes and says that something strange has happened, for a priest came and asked for a handful of Lady Sasha's hair. The girl's father says that they were going to read her fate in the temple, because she is a future princess, and asked Olga if she gave, to which she replied that of course not, because it seemed to her that this situation is wrong. Sasha praised her assistant for that, and immediately our mistress thought that this place is full of different spells, and she thinks that she wouldn't notice it if she wasn't a vampire. But the girl still wonders why all these spells are needed. Eventually, the priest introduces Mrs. Sasha Corsica and says she is the bride, but the people around them say that victim number 4 has appeared, and rejoice that this is the prince's last wedding. And they say that the girl's father is as devastated as the previous ones. Upon seeing the prince, the girl said to herself that he had grown up to be quite a well-groomed bastard, and after a short ceremony the priest said they could seal the marriage with a kiss. But at that, even the priest began to get rather anxious. The guy took off the girl's veil, and seeing the appearance of the girl all around surprised, because according to them she is a very beautiful girl. But the guy is very sad to see how another nice lady fades. The prince asked the girl who she was, to which she whispered to him that she was the one who would always be on his side. But hearing these words, the lad was surprised enough, for he could not understand what it could mean. The priest reminded His Highness that he should kiss the bride, but the lad was very much surprised that the girl was still alive and had not died that night. But the girl thought that if she had to do it, it must be right. She remembered something and said to herself that it had been 10 years since the incident in the woods that made her a vampire, and she said it would be a lie to say she had no regrets, and thought that since he had thrown a stone into the lake of her peaceful life, she should accept this cruel fate. After the kiss, everyone expected the girl to drop dead like all the previous ones, but as expected, the girl stayed alive, but he asked himself if this girl would not die. Seeing this, the prince, together with his wife, approached the king and queen and asked them if he could ask their blessing for this union, to which the king replied that, of course, it should be. At this point, the girl thought that Queen Courtney must be very upset because everything did not go according to her plan, but the girl can see all the innermost feelings, such as selfishness and greed, or obsession and hypocrisy, as well as genuine lust. It seems to the girl that the queen stands out the most in the case of the prince. For about the prince, the girl noticed loneliness and self-destruction and deep despair. The girl realized that all these years the prince was alone, and she wanted to resent him for what he had done. But then the girl came to her senses and asked herself, what can we talk about? Because she says she can't help him, because she still hates him. The priest announces that the royal wedding ceremony is over, and then the guy and the girl were talking to each other, and the prince asked his wife what happened to her hair and eyes. The girl said that she was changed color after she was attacked by a monster that night, to which the guy replied that now he understands, but in his head thought that at least she did not die, and that's already good. His aide approached the prince and informed His Highness that it was time to prepare for the wedding night, but the girl seemed a little surprised to hear these words. And the wedding night means the night after the wedding, which the newlyweds spend together. The girl was already in her bathtub, and her assistant Olga was helping her to get ready to meet her husband. But the girl did not understand what she should do, because she had not even thought about it before. The girl was in her thoughts and didn't even notice that her husband had already come out of the bathroom, and when she noticed him, it was too late, because he was almost next to her and asked her if she was ready. Mrs. Sasha is confused and did not know what she should do now. She feels as if her heart is about to explode. Our heroine is not ready for such changes. The prince asked our heroine if she was nervous, and where was the bold lady who took the initiative of the first kiss. But the girl seems a little afraid of what is about to happen. Prince Paris walked over to her and touched her face, while telling her that nothing would happen, and so she could calm down, but still asked her if she expected otherwise. Sasha in her head was a little angry, because she did not understand what kind of nonsense he was saying, that he was very much mistaken, since she had come to the palace only and for blackmail, and yet she proudly averted her gaze from the guy. Our newlyweds have already gone to bed, and were getting ready to sleep, but suddenly the prince told Sasha that he had a question, and the girl told him to ask, and then the guy told our heroine that he understands that the girl accepted the proposal because of him, but still he does not understand what she wants to achieve when she becomes a princess. Sasha told her husband that she doesn't have any goals, but at the same time she remembered how her assistant asked her mistress what she would do if she became a princess, to which our heroine replied that she needed to get them to throw her out of the palace. Olga didn't understand what she meant, but our heroine said that she was going to show that she wasn't worthy of the title, but at the same time, she wanted to do everything so as not to hurt her family. The girl clutched her stomach and somehow sadly thought that first of all she would not be able to give an heir to this family, and therefore such a development was only a matter of time. We return again to the newlyweds' bed, where Prince tells his wife that he doesn't understand how she has no purpose, and asks her if she plans on not attracting any attention, to which the girl confidently replies that she really does. The guy said that it's a great option, because the queen is still going to make our heroine invisible, and so she does not even have to try. But from these words, the girl got angry and got up in bed, looking directly at her husband. At that moment, Sasha thought that this man himself had brought her to this palace, and now he dares to say such words. And yet she did not look very happy, but on the contrary, she was quite angry. The guy turned to face Sasha and asked her if she had previously told the truth, but the girl asked him what he meant by truth, and the guy asked her if she had told the truth about being on his side. Our heroine looked at the ceiling and told her husband that if she had to choose between someone, it would be him, to which the guy simply replied that he now understands everything. Our heroine somehow sadly sat, and at this time thought that she perfectly understands that they will not become a happy couple. But it seems to her that the prince is more tolerable than the others, and therefore in any case, she will always be for him. After the wedding night, everyone gathers to celebrate their wedding. Olga tells her mistress that she is very happy that they decided to hold the banquet after sunset, while that Sasha tells her assistant that she is also happy about it. Our heroine looked behind her and noticed her husband, who was approaching in their direction after he reached his wife, asked her assistant what her name was, to which she replied that her name was Olga. The prince told Olga to bring a medicine for the stomach from the royal pharmacy, because according to him there is a chance that it will be useful to Lady Sasha. But our heroine asked her husband if the dinner with his family will be so terrible, to which the guy told her that she will see for herself. Our heroes entered the banquet hall, and someone announced that Prince Paris and the princess had arrived, and our heroes walked nicely to the table, while everyone was almost already gathered. Erica suddenly comes running in and pushes Sasha away from the prince, and immediately starts apologizing to the prince with tears in her eyes, saying that Erica should have been braver. But she says that she has made a decision that she will no longer hold back her feelings. The guy waved Erica off and told her to let him go, but Erica said she understood why the prince was upset, but asked him if he really didn't see how much she was hurting and suffering. At the sight of all that was happening, our heroine could not understand what this girl was doing, and said to herself that it should be stopped, and at the same time called Paris in order to tell him something, but she did not even have time to say anything, because the stepmother of the prince intervened in their conversation. The wicked stepmother asked Paris if he really felt sorry for Erica, because she only thought of him, and at that moment the king intervened, saying it was true, and Paris should appreciate her a little more. The prince ignored all talk, and told the little upstart to get off his back before he broke her little neck, to which the girl asked the Paris if he was purposely saying such things to get her to give up. Sasha started laughing and thought that now it was clear to her why she would need the cure, because she realized that there were even more spells in this place than she had thought before. Then our heroine went to her husband and asked him to calm her sister, because she is crying, and smiling sweetly told the prince that this day should be happy for all. The prince tried to pay no attention to Enrique's tantrums, but Paris's younger brother appeared and said that in this case he would see off his sister-in-law, and at the same time he introduced himself to the girl as Chelvi Vladimir, Paris's younger brother. The younger prince, out of politeness, kissed the hand of the new princess, and at this time our heroine thought that this guy is kind, because she does not feel anything bad towards the Paris. All already sat down at the table, but the girl thought it was strange that the newlyweds sit on opposite sides of the table, and she asked herself if it was normal. Well, then she thought that she did not care. Children seemed that it was even more comfortable. The queen said that it was very good that the wedding night went well, and asked His Majesty if he agreed with her, and in doing so, she said that she hoped to hear good news in the near future. The queen, smiling falsely, said that there are royal rules that must be followed, and after the wedding night, Sasha should stay in a separate residence. But the king asked his wife if it would not be better for them to stay together, in order for the heir to appear. At which time the queen whispered to her husband that she was afraid that Paris's curse would make the new princess sick and die, and they needed to keep them apart until they were sure she was safe. After these words, the king agreed with his wife and told her that she was right, and they would respect the rules of the royal family. But immediately the prince jumped up and said that he refused to do so. The queen asked the guy what he was talking about, and smiling falsely told him that she understood his frustration, but the rules had to be followed, and added that she didn't want to do it herself. Sasha said that her health is fine, and therefore she would like to fulfill her duty and give an heir to the house. But the mean stepmother said that her determination is commendable, and began to say something else. But our heroine interrupted her, and said that she admires her husband for all the 10 years that they spent apart. Our heroine says that she does not want to be separated anymore, but from these words the prince choked on wine and began to cough, and the queen began to laugh angrily. But our Sasha said to herself with a confident look that this mean queen will not do what she wants. The king tells his wife that he thinks Paris will sort out his own affairs, and tells his wife Courtney to eat before the food gets cold, to which the queen does as her husband says. But not everything is as easy as it seems at first glance. His Majesty the king asked his son why he was so bad at keeping watch over the royal plains, for he said that the horses began to die one by one, to which Paris replied that he was doing his best to find out what was going on. After these words, the king, unknown for what reason, got angry and said that he was ashamed to have the sons of such a useless idiot like him, to which the couple said that pity is even more, as it seems, because he did not choose in what family to be born. After hearing this, the king became even more angry and asked the prince how dare he speak like that, and threw a glass of wine in his face, and in a rough voice asked Paris how dare he speak to his father like that, and called him an insolent scoundrel. At this time, Erica intervened and asked the prince if he was okay, and said she would bring him a towel to wipe his face. But the guy ordered the girl to get away from him. Sasha was surprised at what she saw and thought that the rumors were true, because she said that she had heard that His Majesty was a very bright ruler. He respected every inhabitant of the country, was a loving and kind husband. The king was most pleased when the previous queen became pregnant, but when Courtney became his mistress, the balance was upset, and the girl remembered her father telling her that there were rumors among the nobles about the king's sudden change of character. He was telling Sasha that Courtney was manipulating him with dark magic and zealous. And then the girl realized that she had seen with her own eyes many spells all over the palace, and asked herself if it could be true that the previous brides were also her victims. Courtney asked Sasha why she didn't touch the food, to which our heroine apologized and said that she was a little nervous, but Junior Prince added that she probably just lost her appetite, because it happens under stress. The girl thought that no matter what the reason was for the king to change so much, he still didn't look normal, and the girl didn't understand how one could curse and torment his own son in public. Erica was walking sad and couldn't understand how that girl had admired the prince for 10 years, but she says she was the first. And suddenly coming back to them, the girl started screaming, asking her mother if she has any idea how sad she was when His Majesty beat Paris and compared him to Chelvy. Courtney at this point yelled at his daughter to stop, but suddenly our heroine gets up from the table and in bewilderment asked herself how long the princes are bullied. At this time, Erica put her hand on her heart and told His Majesty and mother that she had something to announce, then said that she too wanted to marry a Paris. But Sasha was very much surprised, and with disappointment couldn't understand where she had gotten herself into. Erica tearfully said that she and Paris are not related by blood, and are not related by the same surname, and therefore nothing prevents them, and then said that Paris also loves her, and they hid their feelings because they became relatives. Chelsea told her sister that it would be better if she kept quiet, and the king, in the meantime, told Erica in a calm tone of voice that plural marriage is forbidden in the kingdom of Vaticilo. But the dumb queen told His Majesty at the time that she thought a bear cub for Paris wasn't such a bad idea. Courtney whispered to the king that something might happen to one of them and suddenly the other would be left behind. But Chelvy said that would require changing the king's laws, to which the king asked what was the problem. Prince Paris said he would refuse, and offered to give the king his precious Chelvy 2 maidens if he so desired, but he himself would not get mixed up in it for anything. The king got very angry and wanted to say something to the prince, but Courtney stopped him and told the king that Paris was saying that because he was sitting right in front of his wife, and he must have liked the idea and said that the laws should be changed as soon as possible. Courtney asked herself why she hadn't thought of it before, because if you shackle a Paris with an Eric, he can't do anything. And now she realized that she didn't have to go through all the trouble of getting married and getting blood on her hands. Courtney asked Sasha if she understood her concerns, to which she replied that she did, and only Courtney started to say that it was good that they had such a smart daughter-in-law, as the girl said that she couldn't understand one thing. The girl jumped up from her chair and said that it looked like she would have to listen to several kings at the same time, but everyone was speechless and didn't understand what the girl meant. Sasha says it's only natural, because if a prince is allowed to have multiple princesses, so should the king, but hearing that made Chelsea almost choke. Courtney was angry and wanted to say something back to the girl, but the king stopped her and said that she was the only one for him, and he didn't need anyone else, and it seemed to stop the queen a bit. Sasha innocently told His Majesty that it was not a matter of personal preference, and asked him if he too agreed that it was all for the good of the kingdom, but the king blushed and asked his wife if it really was. Courtney couldn't understand why the king was blushing, but then she said that such a matter was not decided at the dinner table, and they would have to hold the matter until another time. Olga was waiting for her mistress outside the door when suddenly Sasha called Olga, and the latter asked Mistress Sasha if she was all right, for she had brought the medicine the prince had asked for. Our heroine was talking to Olga and didn't even notice that Courtney approached her from behind and called her, asking if they could talk a little, but the girl surprisingly agreed. At night, Courtney went out to the garden with Sasha and Olga. And then Sasha said that the garden under the moonlight is a great place to talk and sort out thoughts. But Courtney asked her if she really thinks so. At one point, Courtney stopped and called Sasha's name, then turned around and hit Olga with one swing, after which she fell to the ground. And Sasha was very scared for Olga and asked her if she was okay, to which she replied to the lady that she was okay. Sasha got very angry and started to make a complaint to Courtney, but Courtney said that servants should deal with the consequences of their master's mistakes, and arrogantly asked Sasha if her father had not taught her good manners. Courtney told Sasha to be polite to her queen, but our heroine asked the upstart if she did the same to the prince. But hearing these words, Courtney was very surprised and angry at the same time. Our heroine tells Courtney that she's talking about manners, and she does things like that. But from what she heard, Courtney got even more angry and clenched her hand into a fist, and apparently she wanted to do something to Sasha. At one point, she yelled and called our heroine a cheeky girl and tried to hit Sasha, but the girl grabbed Courtney's hand and began to squeeze it hard, and when our heroine let go of the hand of the evil queen, she said that she was very hurt. Sasha tells Courtney that if she has something against her, then it is worth it to find out with her, and not in any case with Olga. And at the same moment, our heroine thought that she will not forgive anyone who will offend Olga. Courtney told the girl that she now showed her true nature, and she wanted to say something else. But suddenly Paris came up to them, and the queen was very much surprised, but began to play some strange role. Courtney started to play the victim and asked Paris if he saw what happened here, and if he saw his wife attack her for training her maid. It didn't take long for the prince to see that his wife and Olga were sitting on earth, while the upstart Courtney was making herself a victim. And at one point, the prince grabbed his wife's hand and sweetly told her to come with him. Already being in the room, Sasha asked her assistant if she was okay, and asked her to let her see if she was okay. But Olga smiled and told her mistress that she was fine, and that she was very glad that she was her and not her mistress. From these words, our heroine felt sympathetic, and asked Olga what she was talking about, because she appreciates Olga very much. But Olga said that her blood boils at the mere sight of someone who wants to harm Sasha. The protagonist wanted to say something to her assistant, but then Paris appeared and told his wife that she had previously said that she would not attract unnecessary attention, and told her that only he should hornswoggle with Courtney, and advised his wife not to get into unnecessary problems. Sasha listened to her husband, and bowing to him said that she would remember for the future, and then the prince turned around and, heading for the door, told the girl to rest. The girl saw her husband going somewhere, immediately asked him where he was going, but the guy asked her since when they began to discuss such things, and told her to mind her own business. But the girl, at this point, could not understand why it was necessary to be so rude. Sasha's heart seemed to ache, and now she understood why the prince had asked to bring medicine. And now the girl realized that the prince had been suffering from these hellish meals every day, for years. The girl thought that now she feels a tender heart that wants to protect others, and this heart belongs to the prince, but it is hidden under the rough speech, and the girl was very upset that today her actions hurt her dear man. The girl looked at Olga, who was sitting sad, and said to herself that now she should be careful, and started to hug Olga, and her eyes were very sad. Our heroine says that since then, she has not met a prince, and since that time, a few days have passed, and she was very much wondering if everything was all right with her husband, and apparently she cares for him. The girl told herself that she must forget, for she did not understand what she would do if he knew how he was doing, and said that the prince must be very busy, and that was why he did not appear. Olga told Sasha that she had heard that there were rare animals from other continents on the territory of the palace, and the girl was very surprised, and asked Olga if it was really true. Sasha asked Olga if she thought they could see a human-like beast from the southern continent. And at that moment, the girl's eyes lit up very strongly. But Olga asked Sasha if she meant monkeys. They went outside and saw many animals. One was a giraffe, and another was a peacock. And Olga told her mistress to look at it, and the girl looking at it said it was very splendid. But still she asked where the monkeys were. At that moment, Olga realized that apparently the monkeys liked Sasha very much. But suddenly they heard one man scolding another and asked him what he had done. That man asked from another man and told him to explain why these rare monkeys keep dying. But that man says he didn't before saying it was business as usual and he doesn't know the reason. The man who scolded the other said he thought he didn't really follow them properly, and that things had been going downhill since he was hired. At that moment, Sasha approached them and asked the chief what he himself had done to make everything good. And at that moment, he wanted to say something to her, but immediately realized that it was the princess, the wife of the Prince of Paris. The girl kept pressing him and telling him to answer the question, for he was in charge here, and so he should. At least know why they were dying, but they couldn't say anything. The girl told the man that he was in charge of this facility and any things that happen here, good or bad, were his responsibility. The girl felt some strange sensation, and turning around a little noticed that the king was approaching with the queen, but still said to the end to that man that he should not blame others for his incompetence. The girl asked him if he could yell at people over what could be a mere accident, and asked him how he got the position of manager in the first place. But at that moment, Olga told the girl that the king was behind her. Sasha turned around and greeted the king, but he told Courtney that she would go on her own, and turned and walked away, while Courtney tried to stop him. Cheeky Courtney asked what kind of dress it was, because the girl was wearing a black dress and her face was covered with tenderloin, to which the girl apologized and said that it was the condition of her skin, because in direct sunlight she would get a rash. The queen said it was the first time she had ever heard of such a thing, but the girl said that was why she had to dress like that in the middle of the day, to which the court did not say it was a great pity. But she smilingly asked the girl if she really couldn't go out in the sun, and apparently she had some cunning plan. After Courtney left, Sasha could not understand why Courtney's face became joyful, but at that time a subordinate of Paris approached the girl, and Olga asked Hans what he was doing here. Hans said that he had a case nearby, but Sasha immediately asked him if he knew where to find His Highness, to which he replied that he didn't know, because the prince had postponed all his work and would disappear for a few days, and the other knights were looking for him too. After that, Olga happily suggested to Sasha that she and Hans go for a walk together, and she asked her mistress what she thought about it. But Hans said he had a few minutes to spare. Olga and Hans were walking a little ahead of Sasha, and she kept thinking about the prince and asking herself if Hans really doesn't know where Paris is. And suddenly she called the guy and asked if he doesn't know exactly where His Highness is. The boy was a little confused, but the girl said she didn't think he would have time to look at the animals if the prince had disappeared. But the boy was a little silent, then said he had an idea where he might be. Sasha asked the boy if he would tell her where Paris was, to which he said that it made sense to look for him in the birch forest, because he goes there when he is too busy with his thoughts, and only Hans knows about it. And the girl now finally realized that the prince is looking for peace in the forest, not in the palace. We move on an abandoned manor on the territory of the royal palace of Vasilo, where Courtney stepped down, went into some room and looked for someone, and not finding him. She asked where he went, but immediately behind Courtney appeared a man, and the girl called him by the name of Zakar. As soon as Courtney saw Zachary, she jumped on him and started hugging him, telling him she missed him so much, and it turned out they were lovers. The girl laid her head on Zachary's lap and asked him how much longer they should keep doing this. She says she's tired of flattering a man she doesn't love, and now we realize it was all their plan. Zachary tells Courtney that witchcraft can't solve all their problems, and he says he finds it strange that Prince Paris's star has become so bright. But the queen was surprised by it and told him that his fiancé didn't die during the wedding. Zakar asked the girl if she was telling the truth, and if she had done everything as he had told her, to which the girl replied that the priest could not get her hair. The boy wondered and asked himself if this girl had refused the royal priest on that wedding day, and he suspected that the girl had begun to suspect something, but suddenly Courtney pulls him out of his thoughts and tells Zachary that he needs to make love potions for his daughter. Zachary took his head and said it was very ridiculous, and asked Courtney if Erica was still clinging to Paris, and he said she was still the only one who looked at him that way, and needed to make him fall in love and then get rid of him. Zahar says that in this case he will make the same potion that she made for the king, and at that moment, the court didn't think that the kingdom belongs only to her, and she won't let anyone take it away from her. Our heroine was already in the forest, and she kept asking herself if it was okay for the prince to leave here for a few days, and she says she didn't come because she was worried about him, but ironically, said she just wanted to see how the forest had changed. Sasha reached the very place where her whole life changed, and she entered it with difficulty and fear, and remembered how as a little girl she ran to get spring water to save her mother. She told herself that she was strong and could stay there, because now she was not even human. She reached the pond and touched the water, thinking that this was the place that changed her destiny. And at the same time, she remembered those terrible moments when she experienced the tragedy. After a short thought, the girl gathered herself and said that now was not the time for that, because she had to find Paris. But suddenly, a terrible monster came out of the water again. The girl was very much frightened and wanted to kill the monster, but he started flying over the pond. And she was very much frightened and from fear, and her body did not obey, and so she could not defend herself. From fear, the girl fell on her knees and waited for her demise. But suddenly, Paris appeared and saved our beautiful girl. But from fear, the girl was trembling and could not even form her thoughts. The boy looked at the girl and touched her shoulder with one hand, telling her that she was still as reckless as ever, and asked her what had brought her here, for he thought she would never come here again. The girl pulled herself together a bit and proudly said that she was just curious and wanted to see if monsters lived here. But the guy asked her if that's what she came here for in person. The princess said that she also came here because he left a mountain of work and disappeared, continued to pester her with questions about where he was, but the guy answered only that he understood everything. Sasha thought for a while, but after that she thanked the prince for saving her, then and today. But the guy suddenly asked her if she got a rash in the sunlight. But the girl couldn't understand why he suddenly asked about it, but also how he knew it. The prince told Sasha that her father told him that on their wedding day, but suddenly he said he's no savior, since her new looks, skin problems, and stuff are because of him. The guy says that if he'd helped her right away, nothing would have happened, and the girl would have been fine. And he says he's no different from his father. The girl looked at the guy and told him that she wasn't mad at him, but the guy looked kind of confused. But the girl went on and said that it had been 10 years since then, and moreover, they were kids. Our heroine says that the most important thing is that he saved her life, and she should not have gone into this forest. And without his help, the girl says she would have died long ago. The guy looked at the girl and asked her if she wanted to say that and blackmail for the sake of the wedding forgotten. But the girl wanted to say something, but didn't even know what to say to her. And suddenly the guy said that she had already done enough. The girl did not understand what he meant, and asked him what he wanted to say. And suddenly the guy asked her if she wanted to leave the palace, and for a few seconds the girl was very happy, but then with a sad look asked him if she could do it. The prince told his wife that if she wished it, it could happen, and added that she should think a little how she wished to act, and then she could tell him. After these words, Sasha was very happy, and thought that she could return home and urgently need to tell Olga about it. But it seems that the guy was not as happy as the girl, because in his eyes, you could see sadness and sorrow. The girl turned to the guy and noticed that he was sad, and in a moment she wanted to say something to him, but the guy told the girl that it was time to go, and he turned his back to the girl. Morning came, and almost everyone was at breakfast, as at one point, Courtney told His Majesty that she had heard that a horde of bandits were terrorizing the neighborhood of Samara, to which the king said that it was indeed true, and so he would have to lead an army to deal with it. Courtney was up to something again, and asked the king what he was talking about. After all, he has a grown son, and immediately looked at Paris, and then she continued talking, and said that she had heard that these bandits had killed over 10,000 people, and asked her husband if this was a big threat to the kingdom. The king didn't even have time to say anything as Prince Paris turned his attention to himself and asked his father to send him to Samara. But it seems the king was very surprised that he volunteered to go, and Courtney said to give Paris a chance to prove himself. The wily Courtney smilingly said that she thought he would fight for the kingdom as bravely as anyone, but she thought that a prince who had spent his whole life in a palace was not capable of anything. Said to herself that he would be doing her a great favor if he left and died on the battlefield, and then her Chelvi would definitely become the next ruler of this kingdom, and the entire inheritance would belong to her. After a brief silence, the king agreed, and told Paris that it was time to prove himself, and advised him to take his brother's example, for all say he is wiser than many of their scholars. Then, Prince Paris said that he had only one request. If he successfully dealt with the bandits, then let them reinstate the family and his mother, the Kent clan. Courtney was surprised at these words, and the king was very angry and asked him how dare he talk about reinstatement and asked his son if he was crazy. The prince says that he will prove that he is not the devil's child, but it seems that the king did not understand these words. But the boy continued his thought and said that if he is a child, the devil is called his father, and so he will get rid of the bandits for his father's honor. After hearing these words, the king softened and even smiled, and then said that he would fulfill his request if he would destroy all the bandits and bring peace to Samara. And right at that moment, the boy thought that the game had begun for Courtney Lederline. Another day, in Sasha's room, Olga was cleaning, when suddenly the girl told Olga that she had decided that they should go home, and she smilingly extended her hand to her assistant. Olga got very excited and asked if she was serious, if it was really possible, and Sasha answered that it was really possible and they could go home. Olga was very happy and started to hug Sasha, but at the same time she asked the girl if she had thought it over, to which she heard a positive answer from Sasha. Sasha says that she heard that His Majesty is going to Samara to destroy the bandits, so he is very busy these days, and the girl is going to tell him about her decision when she returns from training. Our heroine says she's been thinking very hard about what he said for half a month, and the guy left to train almost 15 days ago, after which the girl says she's hardly heard from him. Sasha clenched her hand into a fist and thought that something was wrong, because she felt anxious for some reason, and suddenly there were some sounds, and the girl came out of her room. Our heroine saw the assistant Paris dragging the prince himself on his back, and at the same time shouted for someone to call for the king's lion doctor. When they reached the girl asked him what had happened to Boris, to which he replied that the prince had fainted during the training, but the girl was horrified by these words, and was very much frightened, with the assistant Paris says that the guy was so focused that he hardly slept or ate, and because of this he fainted. All were already at the prince's bedside, and the doctor informed them that the prince would have to spend at least a week in bed and take a rest, to which his assistant replied that he understood. Hans says that he has to go away for a while, and so he apologizes to the lady. Well, Olga also says that she and Hans will have to go to the pharmacy, and then the girl gives her permission. Sasha began to take care of the prince and wet one towel and then put it on the guy's forehead and noticed that he had a fever, and so the guy started talking in his sleep. The prince in the dream asked his father to forgive him and said the same thing several times in a row. He says he won't do it again and asks his father to forgive him. The girl was in a lot of pain and she took the guy's hand and asked him not to cry, but then she hugged him and told him that he had done nothing wrong. Sasha told him that she would protect him from anyone who would want to harm him, and they cried together. So suddenly, Olga and Hans came into the room, and they were horrified to see the girl crying. Hans saw the girl crying and started to cry himself, but the girl asked him if he could tell her what had been happening to Paris all these years. But suddenly Hans fell to his knees. The lad sitting on his knees told the girl that His Majesty loved the previous queen more than anything else in the world, and the beating began sometime after her death. Hans says that no one wanted to help Paris, and even when he was covered in abrasions. And continuing his story, the guy mentions that in truth, His Majesty secretly threatened Prince Paris. The girl was horrified and asked Hans, how did the king threaten the Paris? But the boy said he blamed him for the death of the brides and believed it was the curse, and that's why he threatened to send him to the border if the fourth bride died. Olga was crying too, and said she was sorry for the guy. And suddenly Sasha told Hans that she would take care of everything, and told Olga that she could go back to her room. Olga asked the girl if she could manage alone, to which the girl said that the prince needed rest, and a large number of people would only interfere with that. The girl sat beside the prince's bed, and putting her hand on his head said that he wanted to prove himself, and so he pushed his powers to the limit. She said that spells of dark magic covered every corner of the palace. The girl says that the queen, who turns the king at will, is drawn between the deceased queen and His Majesty. But the most important thing, the girl says that, is that the couple with did not understand the whole picture. Sasha says that for the princes, it looked as if the father was hopelessly in love, and this suffering would continue for the rest of his life. In his dream, a guy was in a birch forest, and suddenly there was a little girl asking him if he was finally awake, to which he replied that he was. Then the girl put a wreath of flowers on his head and told him that she had made it while he slept, and at the same time she told the lad that he was a Prince Charming, just like a real prince, to which the lad laughingly told her that he was a prince. The girl asked the guy if she should call him Your Highness, to which the guy said she shouldn't, because he likes it when she calls him by his first name. A guy and a girl together were walking, having fun, running, jumping, and at one point he put one rose in the girl's hair and told her she looked like a nymph. Suddenly the guy woke up and got up in bed, but he remembered that he saw a dream, but did not realize when he managed to return to the palace. But a little later he noticed that our beautiful heroine fell asleep next to his bed. When he saw the bowl of water and the towel, the boy realized that it looked like he had fallen ill, and he was very much surprised when he realized that the beautiful girl had been looking after him all night. The prince couldn't believe that he had shown the girl his weak side, and he thought that they would probably hate him now. But when he saw her sleeping sweetly, he touched her beautiful face. Girl woke up already in bed, and was very surprised when she noticed the blanket, and she could not understand how she was in bed. But then the girl saw the prince and asked him if he was already awake, but he confirmed it. Sasha informed the prince that he was unconscious for 3 days, but the guy asked the girl if she took care of him all these days, to which the girl replied that of course she did, because he was sick. The prince asked Sasha if she had already made up her mind about what they had talked about in the forest. The girl was a little confused at first, but the guy told her that he had given her time to think. The girl got a little nervous and said that she had thought about it and seemed to be about to answer him,